BBC Hooniverse.
You're watching the TGM production.
Hello, and welcome to a brand new review. This is a two-parter review. We're part episode 1 and episode 2. Not really two-parters. In this, if for any reason we go over the mandated 25-ish minutes, then the rest of the review will be audio only. That's only if. Now, to stop that from happening, let's get on. Today we're reviewing Episode 1 and 2 of the mini-series, if it is a mini-series, The War Between the Land and Sea. It aired on the 7th of December 2025 on BBC One here in the United Kingdom, which, if I'm not mistaken, includes Northern Ireland, Wales and Scotland. The reason why I say if I'm not mistaken because I'm not too sure if Ireland also got it as well. I should have looked that up, but that's beside the point. This review contains spoilers for episode 1 and 2. I know the rest of the world doesn't get it until some point in 2026 on Disney+. If you're watching this review, then you're happy with spoilers. If you haven't yet watched it and you live in the United Kingdom, then please head over to the BBC iPlayer now to watch episode 1 and 2. If you live around the world, I do apologise. Clips and bits and bobs could appear on YouTube, so watch them if you are desperate to see reviews of the show and don't care about spoilers but want to see the key bits. I'm assuming they release them on YouTube at some point. I, overall, thought that episode 1 and 2 was brilliant. My father thought they were fantastic as well. So let's delve into that in a deeper meaning. Well, what was the War Between the Land and Sea really about? It's about the Sea Devils. Back in Jon Pertwee's time, the Sea Devils appeared, and they're back again. The last time we saw the Sea Devils in their Sea Devil-y original form was in Legend of the Sea Devils with Jodie Whittaker. That was the last time we saw them as what we know as a Sea Devil. Now, years later, they've been redesigned, repepped and given a new species name, due to the fact that this time the Sea Devils have evolved so much so that their genetics and their existence no longer resembles what the Sea Devils once looked like. Yes, they still acknowledge that they are Sea Devils, but because they look slightly different now, they've decided to give them new names. We join our main protagonist, Russell Tovey, as Barclay. No, not named after the bank, which is what I thought. I thought, is he named after the bank? No. He lives in his own private life with his, well, he lives on his own, but he has a daughter and an ex-wife. It's an environmental political thriller with sci-fi undertones. The sci-fi undertone is UNIT, Unified Intelligence Task Force, and the Sea Devils themselves. Some of the best bits in episode 1 has got to be when we first introduce ourselves to the new version of the Sea Devils by the translation, because the words agreed, or agree, whichever one it is actually, was always hilarious. It made me laugh like, it's like this, agreed, agreed. Actually, no, we don't agree to any of that, but we do agree to something else. And it was the fact that the translation took a while, and they're like, right, we don't need a translation, because we can speak perfect English, we can understand English. That's the bit that really confused me, right? This isn't a British incident, if you will. This is a global incident. So, how much effort must that take for a Sea Devil, right, who's a species that has its own dialect and language, has to understand millions of languages in the span of like 24 hours, right? The next issue is the humans have an issue, Barclay particularly, has an issue of trying to translate thousands of languages when so, UNIT, right, is trying to help make sure that the world is heard in all their different opinions. But because the world has multiple different languages, not every country in the world knows English. The majority probably, like, in high school, primary school, we learn French, German, Spanish. They're the key ones I can think of. Latin at one point in time. A lot of countries probably learn English, German, French. A lesson from Germany. Anyway, they probably learn English, right? So probably enough countries have enough basic grasp of English to be able to communicate with UNIT, right? I'm assuming that's the case. But we never actually get that far, because every time someone speaks, they're all speaking English. Obviously, it's British drama, so you have to utilise English, unless you don't translate what they're saying because you want to show the authenticity, but you don't really need, storytelling-wise, to translate it. The Chinese anchor. That's some of the other end. Anyway, but the point is that it was really good, and I really liked it. If you really want to delve into it, I think Barclay is a strong character, but there is a bit, and I found this out later, because I don't remember every line. Apparently, UNIT was disbanded in 2020, but Barclay mentions 2020 as when he had this position for a small while, right? So, a little bit of contradiction. Ironically, in episode, I think it's episode 2 or 1, we see the Titanic, and it seems like, from what I can gather, to be our Titanic, as in the real world Titanic, underwater Titanic, not Doctor Who Titanic, which was Russell Tovey in the sky with Kylie Minogue and Bala Kafalata, and a bloke that was just a head on a robot. It's like a Simpsons Futurama-esque character. Well, I think it's more Futurama than the Simpsons. So, what you get, really, is you get this undertone of the environment, which is current because of everything that's going on in the world. I'm not going to mention it, but it is topical and current. Episode 1 in itself, excellent start. You could say there's some bumpy bits you're not too sure on, but once you get into it, you then go, wow. My main problem in all of this is where's Unit Tower? Where's the Unit Tower that we disclosed in the 60s? Where's Mel? Where's Lynx? Where's Rose? Not Rose Tyler, but Donna Noble's daughter, Rose Noble. Where are they? Who are these new people in Unit? I know we had Shirley Ann Bingham, which I'll say it once, and I'll say it twice, I'll say it 30 times. Yes, I really do think, right, that Shirley Ann Bingham, great character, but she shouldn't be there, because that, in every aspect, is Hebe Harris. Thank you very much. Yep, she shouldn't return to Doctor Who in, be first time visual form, really, in playing Shirley Ann Bingham. She should not have been Shirley Ann Bingham. She should have been, yes, have her in Unit, but Hebe Harris could join Unit, right? She could have been Hebe Harris, and I'm going to say that to the end of the earth, because Hebe Harris is a cracking character. I love to see her on screen, but now that we've got Shirley Ann Bingham, we've got Shirley Ann Bingham to this extent of having her in 60th special, both series of the next lot, and this. It's like, are you trying to kill off Hebe Harris in the continuity? Why? Because they're not going to recast her, right? So, that's my little gripe about that. But I do like Shirley Ann Bingham as a character generally, because I do think it's an interesting way to use like a rocket-powered wheelchair or having weapons in it. It's like James Bond just in sci-fi. I do think that's brilliant, but Hebe Harris is a better character than Shirley Ann Bingham. Anyway, that's beside every point possible. But when you think about it, you have one of the scenes in both episodes that you sort of get the suspenseful, but I feel like it went on for slightly too long. Is when the sea devils are coming down, they have to fill up the water. I'm gonna call them sea devils because that's what they are. They have the water bubbling in a tank, and it's like, right, okay, the water's filled now. What time? What time are we on? We've got 10 minutes left of the episode. Thanks. Could you just hurry up, please? Hurry up! Hurry up! Come on! How long does it take to get from the sea through the tube into the? It's a drama. It's a TV, bro. We don't have to be accurate. The sea devils aren't real. We don't have to be accurate to how fast fish swim. Apart from that little blubberfish in the beginning. The one that was like, we never actually found anything about him. But he was a general fish. He wasn't a half-human fish thing. What I mean by half-human is a fish that can walk on legs instead of swimming. I mean, they can swim as well. That's beside every point. But the point I'm trying to make here is that it's one of those aspects where you're like, that's taking too long, come on, hurry up. But overall, I thought episode 1 was really good. And I think having, and this is a spoiler, I do apologise, but having Barclay as this ambassador for humans, having a debate over whether or not he should have been, and all that was just incredible. I think it was good paced. I think the acting was phenomenal. I do think that the getting from the sea devils from the sea to the earth in the little chamber thing was too long. They could have sped that up. They could have cut that together. It was way too long for my liking. But I think that the drama, the aspect of it, and the whole scenes of where he's going rogue and where he doesn't want to do that and he wants to be his own person and he wants to tell the truth and he don't want to drink the dirty river water because he might get E. coli and dysentery and all these other diseases. And I think it shows how emotional he is, and I loved the human woman man thing, whatever that is. It's the leader of the sea devils is what I'm gonna call it, because from the outset you think that's a female sea devil, right? But then obviously it can shapeshift when it gets angry. So is it a shape-shifting sea devil? I think only time will tell. But for now, I'm going to go off now to go and realise how brilliant the Sea Devils is. And then come back and review episode 2. Because what I want to make sure that we don't have to do audio-only segments. And I'll see you in a moment. Bye-bye. Right, I'm back. Wow, that was brilliant. I loved the first episode. I do think that the first episode set up this drama perfectly. Here's some honourable mentions that I can't actually remember if it's episode 1 or 2 because the editors double bill one after the other, so it sort of like merges together. Honourable mention is this. This part also contains spoilers, but it's not a new video, so I don't need to bother with that bit. This is a spoiler, and it's fascinating because I think that I don't think he'll be an adolescence or a Mr. Bates versus the post office type scenario where the government's talking about it. I don't think it'll be that, but I think it'll be a talking point on the BBC News or talking point on BBC programming based on the environmental stuff we've learned from this drama. So the honourable mention is I'm going to say it, the rubbish, plastic, cardboard, everything that's landed in the seas coming out. So there's an episode of Sarah Jane Adventures where it rains fish, right? Rains fish, and the fish land. And I thought, for that time, that's a really good effect. But what do you do to improve that effect over time? Well, rubbish, plastic bags, and this is the thing. You knew something in that realm was coming because the motif throughout that sequence was a plastic bag flying around, right? You see the plastic bag flying in the air. Well, one of those 50p ones, not a bag for life. They're made of sturdier stuff, probably. And you learn very early on that that's going to mean something. That's what you do when you watch drama. You sort of think, I'm going to mention that in my review, but what you also think is, I can see what it's trying to convey in that sense, because I do, in my educational career, from college to high school, has always been film and television and radio, right? It's been the whole package. You sort of learn the motifs and these things are placed for certain reasons. And it raining rubbish and hitting people and this like mass destruction is brilliant because it says, yes, they're trying to have a peace negotiation going on over there, but at the same time, they're trying to go, actually, I want to favour with that over there. I want to have the world being issues. Other honourable mention that doesn't get enough recognition, and I'm 100% sure I'm correct in this, but I'll hold my hands up if I'm not correct, because I wasn't 100% sure, but I am slightly more sure than I was last time, is Trinity. I'm going to give a round of applause here. Well done to Russell T Davies and Pink Muktai for trying and succeeding in getting Trinity Wells back. Now, Trinity Wells is a fantastic, cameo character in the Whoniverse of New Who, right? If you watch 2005 to today, you will see, apart from the bits where she's nodding it, anytime Russell T Davies has anything to do with Doctor Who and has thought about it, right, whether or not that's Doctor Who, Sarah Jane Adventures, you name it, Trinity Wells makes a cameo. My main question is why, when an incident occurs, why is the first port of call, mainly the Sarah Jane Adventures, to watch American news? Right, she lives in Britain. Mainly, it was filmed in Wales. But why was her first thought, I know what I'll do. I will bring up American news and watch Trinity Wells. I mean, in the war between the land and the sea, her appearing wasn't because that was the first port of call. It's because it created this excellent sequence. And trust me, you get a lot of this if you're watching, I don't know, 24 or something. And it's a sequence where, and this is how I'm going to describe it, you have the news broadcasts all around the world, but instead of having them all talking at once, which tends to happen in drama, this time they let them have their spot of light. Trinity Wells popped up a few times. I mean, I do think there was less connection to our original Sea Devil story in the first two episodes. Hopefully, at some point, we'll get a further reference. A Jo Grant, a nod to John Pertwee's Doctor, a nod to Roger Delgado, a nod to Jodie Whittaker, or a nod to some era. I want to see in episode 3 and 4, I want to have, whether or not it's a cameo from Jo Grant, or in the background of shots, we have different things that when I say us fans, I don't mean the Whovians that watch it. I mean the Whovians that watch, review, analyse, talk about leaks, talk about rumours, make fan films, make fan those fans who notice a very, very, very minute detail, yeah? I'm talking about that type of fan, right? That's me included. And I want to be able to see a very minute, very small section, right? And I want to be able to go, yes, that's from the original. Bingo. And that's what I want in the next few episodes. That probably won't happen. Well, let's talk about episode 2 in more detail. I think episode 2 sort of expands the story, gives us another set of wonderful Barclay speeches, and gives us a sense of anger towards the fact that he's just a random guy. He's up to no good, trying to make trouble in your neighbourhood. And I like the fact that it ramps up the energy in this massive, glorious room. And I like how the background checks of Unit get really angry. It's all because he showed compassion. All because he showed that he wanted to respect the dead. And I think that it shows that humanity has this positive, this interesting side. I'm trying to see if my thing's still recording. And it showcases how brilliant, how wonderful, and how amazing the human race is in Chile. So I think that the Doctor not being there sort of seemed a little bit weird, because when the Sea Devils rose in the first episode, rose from the seas, and they're in a boat trying to go and see the Statue of Liberty, right? And they're rosing, you would think the Doctor would appear at some point. In Torchwood, you can understand why the Doctor's not there. In Sarah Jane Adventures, you can understand why the Doctor's not there. In Class, you can understand why the Doctor does appear. The Doctor does appear in Sarah Jane Adventures as well, but you can understand why, for the majority of it, the Doctor's not there. At this point, you can't understand why the Doctor's not there, but it makes sense. They mention him enough to keep it in the world of Doctor Who, so I quite like that. And I think that the way that they showcase the scenes where UNIT are trying to learn who these are, whilst also trying to make sure that the peace deal goes through, is incredible. And you watch it going, those reviews that you've been reading beforehand, you can understand why they're so in awe, why they're so happy about what they're receiving on the end of it. And you watch it and go, that is brilliant. So, top 3 favourite moments as we come towards the end of this review. Number 1, all the rubbish falling from the sky. Number 2, the moment when Barclay gets chosen by the Sea Devil, that he will be the human ambassador. Because, trust me, you have to have some comic time in it in a lot of things these days, because people expect that. But that comic time from Russell Tovey, because he's been in Juice recently, a British sitcom created by Mawaan Rizwan, you can see that his timing's like impeccable, and he's like, okay, boop, boop, excuse me, why me? Hello, why me? Hello, why me? And it gets you to question things. And so it's the rubbish falling from the sky, right? It's Trinity Wells in that news sequence with all the other news broadcasters, all the other news reporters, the British ones and the Chinese one, and obviously Trinity Wells. But that whole sequence, right? So it's rubbish falling from the sky. Trinity Wells is news broadcast sequence. I think having UNIT being this backdrop is excellent. And it's got to be when Barclay gets chosen to be the human ambassador. I do think that it's one of those shows where, because it was on so late, I couldn't review it directly after, but it's one of those shows where you just need to sit there and go and digest what you've just watched. You can't really just immediately say, my thoughts this, my thoughts that, my thoughts this. You have to sit there and go, right, and really digest what you're watching, and digest that you can tell why it's trying to be more environmentally political, and that's what we want. Because you want something that's sci-fi, but you want something that's also relevant to what's going on in the world. And I think that showcases that in a positive light. And so, there we have it. My review of episode 1 and 2. I think episode 2 was equally as good as episode 1, but I think episode 2 was consistent from start to finish. There wasn't any bits that felt too long, apart from, as I've said before, the sequences of the Sea Devils getting there. That's way too long on both episodes, and will be way too long in the rest of the series. So that's my criticism. I think some of the characters are really likeable. I think it's weird that we don't have... Where's Lenny Rush? I know he wasn't in the second series, because obviously Shelley Bingham returned, but where is Lenny Rush? Lenny Rush should have been mentioned in series 4-15. Should have been mentioned in series 15, right? Why was he not? Where is Lenny Rush? And I know that Shelley Bingham probably went on maternity leave or a mandatory holiday leave or whatever to explain why Lenny Rush was there, but Lenny Rush could appear in this. I think he would be brilliant. Hopefully he appears in future. So, without further ado, That's my review. I would give episode 1 a 9 out of 10 due to the sequence at the beginning being slightly slow and all the Sea Devil stuff coming in slightly slow. And I'm not going to deduct that point because of that. So I'm going to give episode 2 a 10 out of 10. And with the whole series, we'll get a 9 out of 10 because of that sequence. Because that sequence is going to just happen and happen. I can't justify a 10 out of 10. But that episode alone, if you ignore that sequence, is a 10 out of 10. I think it's going to be a strong series. And Barclay is going to be a fantastic character. He's going to go down in the Hall of Fame of Doctor Who spin-off characters. Bye-bye. Hello, it's Tom here. I'm really sorry that there was bits only in audio. The camera died this time, not overheating. Ooh, I really loved the war between the land and sea. I'll see you next week for a review of episode 3 and 4. Don't forget to subscribe to the official Tom Mason YouTube channel.